It was supposed to be a normal afternoon at school, but what happened next left everyone stunned. A 14-year-old black girl, shy but brilliant, was suddenly accused of stealing by school officers. They cornered her in the hallway, their voices sharp and accusing, as students passing by stopped to watch. Despite her protests and pleas, they wouldn't listen. To them, she was just another kid who had done something wrong. But what these officers didn't know was that her father wasn't just any dad. He was the governor of the state, a man who had spent years fighting for justice and fairness, someone who would stop at nothing to protect his family and make things right. As the officers pressed her for answers, the girl kept calm, her head held high. She knew the truth would come out, but the humiliation in front of her peers was already done. Little did those officers know, their actions that day would spark a series of events they couldn't control. What happened when the governor found out? How did the school and the officers react when they realized who they had falsely accused? Stay tuned, because this story is only just beginning. The girl's name was Maya, and she wasn't just any student. She was known for her kindness and sharp mind, often tutoring her classmates and volunteering after school. That day, Maya had been walking to her next class when two school officers stopped her. They claimed a teacher's wallet had gone missing and pointed fingers at her, saying she matched the description of someone who'd been near the staff lounge earlier. Maya was stunned. She hadn't even been near the lounge that day. She calmly explained this, but the officers didn't believe her. The questions became harsher, and soon, a crowd of students gathered around, whispering and filming the confrontation on their phones. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but stayed composed. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong. What the officers didn't know was that Maya's father, Governor James Carter, had always taught her to stay true to herself, even under pressure. He often said, "Integrity speaks louder than words." Little did the officers realize that baseless accusations and the growing scene around them were about to create a storm far bigger than they could imagine. The question now was how far this injustice would go before the truth came to light. As the scene unfolded, whispers turned into murmurs, and murmurs turned into loud chatter. Some students were recording the incident, while others stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Maya could feel the weight of their stares, but she stayed calm, refusing to let the officers see her cry. She repeated her innocence, but her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Meanwhile, one of Maya's closest friends, Tasha, had been watching from the back of the crowd. She knew something wasn't right. Maya wasn't the type to get into trouble, let alone steal. Without hesitation, Tasha slipped away and called Maya's dad, Governor Carter. When he picked up, her voice was shaky but determined as she explained what was happening. At the same time, the school principal arrived, alerted by the growing commotion. Instead of stepping in to de-escalate, he seemed more concerned about appearances, questioning Maya as though she were guilty. Maya's heart sank as she realized even the adults she trusted weren't standing up for her. Back at the governor's office, Carter's expression hardened as Tasha finished explaining. He didn't waste a second. "I'm on my way," he said firmly, already grabbing his coat. The storm brewing at the school was about to take an unexpected turn. Maya stood silently as the officers demanded she empty her backpack. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming injustice of it all. She opened her bag and revealed books, notebooks, and her lunch, nothing remotely close to the missing wallet. But even then, the officers didn't back down. They muttered something about checking security footage, leaving Maya standing in the middle of the crowd like a criminal on display. Meanwhile, Governor Carter was racing to the school, his mind spinning. This wasn't just about Maya. It was about the deep-seated biases that allowed situations like this to happen. As he drove, he made a few quick phone calls, alerting his legal team and trusted advisors. This was going to be bigger than just an apology. Back at the school, the tension was mounting. The principal had instructed the students to return to their classrooms, but few listened. Whispers of "that's the governor's daughter" rippled through the hallways as the story began spreading like wildfire. Maya's friend, Tasha, stayed by her side, her phone clutched tightly as she recorded everything. Just as the officers were about to make another accusatory remark, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. The governor had arrived, and the entire school seemed to hold its breath. The hallway went silent as Governor Carter stepped through the doors, his presence commanding immediate attention. His usually calm demeanor was replaced with a look of unwavering determination. He locked eyes with Maya, offering her a reassuring nod before turning to the principal and the officers. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice steady but sharp. The officers, caught off guard, stammered as they attempted to explain their actions. They spoke of suspicion, matching descriptions and protocol, but Carter wasn't buying it. He turned to the principal, his tone laced with disappointment. "You let this happen to one of your students without evidence." Before anyone could respond, one of the students who had been filming stepped forward. "They didn't even check the cameras," he said, holding up his phone. "I saw Maya in the cafeteria during the time they said the wallet went missing." The crowd murmured in agreement, and suddenly, the narrative began to shift. Just as it seemed the officers had no defense left, one of them received a call on his radio. His face paled as he listened. Sir, the wallet was just found. It was in the teacher's desk the whole time." Gasps filled the hallway, but Carter wasn't done. "This isn't over," he said, his voice carrying a weight that promised accountability. But before he could say more, the principal's phone buzzed with a call. He looked at the screen and froze. The school board was now involved, and the stakes had just risen even higher. The tension in the hallway was palpable as the news of the wallet being found spread. The officers looked at each other, visibly uncomfortable, and the principal stammered through an apology. "Governor Carter, I assure you this was a misunderstanding," he said, his voice shaky. But Carter wasn't interested in excuses. "Misunderstanding," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "You humiliated my daughter in front of her peers, accused her without evidence, and ignored her when she tried to defend herself. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's negligence, and it's systemic." His words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Just as Carter prepared to demand a formal investigation, another voice spoke up. It was Maya. "Dad," she said softly, stepping forward. Her voice was steady despite everything she had endured. "I appreciate you standing up for me, but this isn't just about me. If it happened to me, it's happening to other kids too. Something has to change." The crowd murmured in agreement, and the principal's face reddened as he realized the weight of what had unfolded. But then, just when it seemed the situation had reached its peak, another twist emerged. One of the students who had been recording approached Carter. "Sir, you need to see this," he said, handing over his phone. The video showed the officers arguing before confronting Maya, one of them admitting aloud that they didn't have any solid evidence, but needed to act quickly to set an example. It was a damning moment, and Carter knew this was no longer just a school matter. By the end of the day, Carter announced that he would be launching a statewide review of school disciplinary practices, ensuring accountability for everyone involved. As for Maya, she walked out of that school with her head held high, knowing she had turned a moment of pain into a call for justice. But as she glanced at her dad, she couldn't help but wonder what other truths might surface once the deeper investigation began. The story was far from over. In the days that followed, the story spread far beyond the school. The video recorded by the students went viral, sparking outrage and conversations about fairness, accountability, and the treatment of students in schools. Governor Carter stayed true to his word, launching an investigation into not just the officers' actions, but also the broader policies that allowed such incidents to occur. His efforts were met with overwhelming support from parents, students, and advocacy groups alike. At school, things changed for Maya. Some students apologized for staying silent during the confrontation, while others thanked her for standing strong. The principal, under pressure from both the governor's office and the school board, announced new training for staff and officers on bias and proper procedures. Though the experience had been painful, Maya knew she had played a part in bringing about change, not just for herself, but for others who might have faced similar injustices. As she and her dad drove home one evening, Maya looked out the window, her thoughts racing. "Do you think it'll really make a difference?" she asked quietly. Carter smiled at her, his eyes full of pride. "You've already made a difference, Maya. This is just the beginning."